Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of Community Living Podcast on Depictions Radio. My name's Kelly Rayburn, and along with me are the two panels, Paul Gilbert, who's in Esquimalt, British Columbia, and Michael Clogs, who's in White Rock. Good to hear from you all, and of course this is the August edition, so let's get right to it. How are you doing, guys?
Good.
Good. All right. So, what I heard from we've heard so many cases that is happening on the past few days, and of course they were talking about, how many people that are coming into places, the minimum of 50 people per party, and of course we had a couple of people that were dealing with fines and stuff like that. You guys have on takes on that?
Yes, I was quite pleased that somebody in Victoria that had a party in a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
They had something like 50 people in it.
Mm.
And then they got charged $2,500 as a fine for doing that. I mean, 50 people in a one-bedroom apartment.
Mm. Good
Lord. I mean, how... talk about irresponsible.
Yeah, it's quite something because I know who was it. Now it's not Adrian Dix. I know he's the Minister of Health.
Yes.
And who's the Justice Minister?
Oh, you mean the Attorney General?
Attorney General, yes, that's who it is.
No, that's David Eby.
You mean
David Eby?
You mean the Solicitor General?
Solicitor General.
Mike Barnes.
Yeah, that's who it is.
Yeah, Mike Farnsworth is public safety.
Yeah. So tell me more about it.
Well, it was on Friday which would be what was the date on Friday? Anybody?
Yeah, it was during the weekday, for that matter. And I did heard from Mike Farnsworth about through the Solicitor General, this report on it.
Yeah, it was Friday the 21st that he announced that the fines were going to become active.
Mm.
So as of August 21st, the fines were active, and from what I understand, that it was August 22nd, was it, Paul, that the party happened, and they issued fines in excess of $2,300, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, Yeah, it's amazing that somebody would actually do something like that during a pandemic. Yeah, but I see that all the time. Actually, unfortunately, on the street, I see people talking with strangers, chatting, people that they don't actually live with. They're just face to face almost. It's just amazing how some people are just oblivious to the dangers.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
All right.
I've started wearing. I'm not even only wearing a face mask every time I leave my house. I'm wearing gloves now too.
Yes. And speaking of face masks, now that we heard from Dr. Bonnie Henry that all public transit services are now requiring masks throughout the travel.
I've actually I've actually been quite disquieted to be on public transit and have people sitting in the next seat not wearing masks.
Right.
Some people just refuse to do it, and I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, the drivers aren't in a position to throw people off without risking physical assault.
True.
So I personally think that drivers should be. They have cameras on these on places.
Mostly on public transit on TransLink in this area, yeah. Basically,
they should actually have police stopping buses and going on and finding people who refuse to wear masks.
Well, it's funny enough that you mentioned police because there was basically mostly a lot of police services do attend to go through the SkyTrain services around this area and do check for services, people wearing masks. And not only on SkyTrain services, but also on the Beeline services where, especially near the main hubs areas like Commercial Broadway or on the Broadway City Hall area or down near Waterfront, any of those major hubs, they will have a police services around that area do checking the areas looking for masks.
Mm-hmm. Good. We need that.
Yeah. Michael?
Well, I actually haven't been on transit in over a month. Mm-hmm. But what I noticed, especially on the SkyTrain, because it's really difficult to social distance on SkyTrain. Mm-hmm. It's easier on the buses because they have so many seats taped off and no one's allowed to stand. Mm. So it's easier to do it on the bus. But with that being said, that we knew we were during this period when I was actually on the SkyTrain, we were actually under part of the lockdown,
right?
And nobody was wearing a mask. I got on at the Bridgeport station.
Yep.
And I immediately, as soon as I got out of my car and I went to the platform, I had my mask on.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I found it interesting that more people didn't voluntarily decide to wear the mask. But at the same time, I thought that the struggle between Bonnie Henry and the transit authorities, both BC Transit and TransLink, mm-hmm. She wanted them to impose the regulation of the mask as a corporation. You can't get on my bus, you can't get on my SkyTrain unless you put a mask on, mm-hmm. rather than having the government do it, because it's a lot harder to repeal a government order than it is for a corporation just to say, hey, you don't have to wear the mask anymore.
Yeah. It's almost...
that was one of the hesitations of Bonnie Henry saying that and Adrian Dix saying we're going to order this, mm-hmm. because it's a lot harder to repeal such a thing. It takes more meetings, more stuff,
right,
to make that happen. Mm. So, and also, of course, because I've ridden the ferry once, also that when you're in the waiting area for the ferry to come, there were people standing around inside without the mask on. But before you could get onto the ferry, they made you put it on.
Yeah.
So how is it that BC Ferries was able to say, you're not boarding my boat, but SkyTrain and TransLink would say, you can't get on my train?
Mm. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, they actually, that's part of the problem, is that they, with buses, there's so many different stops that, unless you had somebody actually on the bus enforcing it, mm-hmm. it's difficult for drivers because they are at risk of assault.
Right.
So I can understand their discomfort with it, but they really should have somebody doing it, or at least, maybe they should have a regular stop that the police come onto buses and just walk through them and see if there's people not wearing masks, so they can charge them.
Yeah. Well, I think that I heard on the news yesterday, they were supposed to say they are requiring for all stations to have certain locations giving out these masks to people, and basically what the news is saying is they are requiring me masks to get it by either having your own mask or getting it from the TransLink service people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that would be a good idea. There should be enough masks out there in the world by now to actually have enough for everyone, especially since they're not they're not the medical grade masks.
Yeah.
Wearing some sort of mask. It eliminates the a bus is going to fill up with that droplet cloud really fast, as
It
well
would.
as the SkyTrain will.
Well,
Well, I mean, you mentioned in Vancouver that they actually have seats taped off. They don't actually have that happening in Victoria Transit.
they got rid of them as well. They got rid of those seats taped off and stuff as well. So we're both on the same boat there, Paul.
Oh, that's too bad because it made me really uncomfortable sitting behind somebody who's not wearing a mask.
They must. Kelly, did they eliminate the tape on the seats as we went into stage 3?
Yes, pretty much, because obviously what Dr. Bonnie Henry is being told just bring your face mask, and that's what they're saying is required. So they're requiring it, and then now I've seen it on public transit services that are saying mask required on every bus electronic signs. So I don't know if it's happening in Victoria, but they are adding in this the signage saying mask required.
They actually had that have had those signs on every bus stop post for a while now here, but it's been until they actually enforce it. People are gonna ignore it, and I find that pretty irresponsible.
Yeah, I basically will agree on that.
A reporter asked me whether or not people with disabilities should have some way of certifying if they can't wear a mask, because some people can't.
Yeah.
But they need a doctor to confirm that. There should be a certificate people can get, or at least a doctor's note clarifying that if they can't for disability, for the health reasons, that they can't wear a mask.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about that too, because a lot of people have breathing difficulties, for one. Two, they're using their air tanks to trying to breathe normal situations. People with asthma, people with those kinds of situations do have situations that they need some sort of situation for breathing.
Yeah, it's only fair that people with disabilities shouldn't have to wear masks if it's going to affect their health. But they should. I think that it should be done the same way as a parking placard is. That you actually get confirmation from a doctor. Otherwise, there'll be people out there cheating and saying that they can't wear a mask because of health reasons, simply because they don't like being caught. There's enough. I mean, there's plenty of people who park in disabled parking spots simply because they want to. Right.
Almost
not because they need to.
Yeah. Michael?
Well, there should be some kind of some sort of a certification issue to people with that level of a breathing problem, but at the same time, maybe they should extend the handy dart service to those people so that they can have a safer ride.
Yes,
that would be a good idea.
Yeah, and
or extend the taxi savers or something like that. Maybe they're able to walk, so a taxi saver might be an appropriate thing also. So.
Interesting, but I hear a lot more information on what's happening with the taxi services, but I haven't heard anything more about what was happening with their handy dart service in that manner. And I'm assuming they're obeying their situation with COVID-19, especially with elderly and seniors, people riding the services as well. I don't have full details of what was happening on that out front. So, I mean, if I get
the only thing I know that I have actually seen the handy dart. I still see them running around picking people up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
we've reported on this before about how they were cutting back on it and how they were trying to refer it more to the taxis, and now we have the ride-hailing services, which also is affecting the taxi services, and so there's a whole lot of stuff to go through to figure out how this is actually all affecting people that have a disability, and they simply can't get on a regular transit bus.
Yes,
exactly.
Well, even often that's the case, and I mean, it's, especially since people with disabilities often, when they're if they're using chairs, they often can't get on a transit bus simply because somebody has a stroller in the way.
Yeah, and then we also have vehicles like hospital shuttle services, going from hospitals to hospitals. I mean, how are they coping with the COVID-19? And along with the Handy Dart services, they're dealing with senior care homes around the facility. That's another situation that's happening there. I was just wondering if there was any information on that to the public.
No, I haven't heard anything about that yet. I was concerned the other day on the weekend. I went out to a restaurant with a friend, and when we got there, all the staff were wearing masks, and then there was a shift change, and none of the staff were wearing a mask.
Good.
I was really surprised because they're coming right up to you.
Exactly.
Up to everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's almost the same with many of the shift change at my grocery store. It's, when you come into the store, you may have to wear your mask and wash your hands. They're not doing it mandatory like public transit services, but we just want to make sure that the customers are coming in safely, and also with the employees as well.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah. Anyways, Paul, you had something to say before we came on.
Yes, well, one of the things that actually we decided we better highlight at the BC Disability Caucus is that in BC, a parent on provincial disability assistance may get less benefits if dependent children work.
Okay.
So, if for a parent who is on PWD assistance or provincial disability assistance, if their dependent child is not a full-time student, their earnings are considered household income and have to be declared to the province. So what happens? A dependent child's income may result in the parent's benefits being reduced if the family income threshold level has been reached.
Right.
So much for saving for school or earnings too much, so that your parent may no longer get disability benefits. What the government is saying is to a son or daughter is to move out as soon as they can if you want to keep your own money and prevent your parent who is on assistance from losing theirs.
Right.
If your dependent child is not in full-time school, their earnings are considered income and count towards your annual earnings exemption. So if your dependent child is in full-time school, their earnings are not considered income. So what you see is that if you have to declare that on your monthly report. At the bottom of it, it's income of dependent children is there. If you're making so if your child is making more than $12,000, it comes right off your disability benefits.
Yeah.
Or if a family unit has two recipients, $14,000, and if there's a family with two adult recipients, where both recipients have a PWD designation, that's $24,000. That they earn the exemption. But so it's pretty easy for a child that's trying to earn or save up for school or what have you to end up costing their parent their income. I don't know how the government can do that and sleep at night.
Michael?
There's a lot of measures that we talk about. People give give a lot of lip service to wanting to end poverty. But
right.
then you see a situation like this where a child is trying to earn enough money to be able to go to school to lift themselves out of poverty, only to be drugged back down again because, that's part of household income, so we're going to rip that away from you so that we keep you in poverty. But yeah, and it's a pretty bold statement in that direction. When you think
really is, and I mean, according to the OECD, it takes four generations to get if you're born into poverty. It takes 4 generations for your four generations before your descendants earn an average income.
Right.
So this is something that the government doesn't. They talk about the fact that we have the American dream here, and we can rise up out of poverty. Well, no, we can't. Maybe our children's children can, but we can't.
4 generations from now.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. They're not actually when government policy doesn't pay attention to reality. It's a major problem for everybody.
It is.
So we're talking like 50, maybe 50 to 60 years from now, you might have a descendant who rises out of poverty.
Yes, yeah, I know it's scary, and I mean, really, what happens? I mean, let's face it. When you get your first job, often your parent helps you, or a relative helps you, and their social level determines what level of job you're likely to find. A lot of the things that happen is, if you're a rich person and you know all sorts of rich people, you should be able to get your kid into a really good job because you have contacts.
Yeah.
But not if you're poor.
No.
Or of course they move into that executive level of whatever the family business is, right?
Yeah, it happens the same thing with labor too. I mean, when you look at John Horgan, not to poke at him too terribly, but John Horgan's jobs were union jobs. You don't get it into union jobs unless you have people in the union that are trying to get you into them. I mean, I got into a union job piling lumber to save money for school because I had a relative there. I'd been applying for years before I got in.
Right.
But I had a relative there who got me in. So that's often the way it is with union jobs. So yeah, it's the same sort of thing. I mean, you have a contact that helps you raise you up out of poverty. But unless you have those contacts.
Yeah, and that's certainly how it goes. Of course, you hear me talk a lot about entrepreneurism and things like that. Is simply because that's the wheelhouse that I grew up in.
Right.
Like my parents owned my mother owned a housekeeping business, and my father owned a janitorial service that they cleaned hospitals.
Okay.
And that's how my very first job, they paid my tuition to private school because I paid my own tuition to private school.
Oh, cool.
Because my parents thought that, hey, we're not going to have an overprivileged bunch of children. You're going to pay your own way. So what they did was they implanted me in one of the hospitals as one of the floor moppers.
Interesting.
To pay for my high school and my university education.
Cool.
So, but what happened to me is not the norm though. But along the way I also learned business. I learned how to contact with people and to keep those contacts going.
Oh yeah.
And when you start suppressing a group of people, they give up on trying to make those contacts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is. That's what's so heart-wrenching about the idea that you have to kick your child out of the house if they're going to make an income. I mean,
True.
Making it doubly hard for them to actually do anything with themselves. My parent actually made sure that her children could stay home as long as they were going to school.
Right.
I mean, when we went to university, we had a support network to go to university from because of my mother. I don't know if we would have if it would have been financially possible to do it without her helping us.
Yeah. In either case, we both had help to get our educations, implanted into a job that would pay for it, or allowed to stay home while you were doing that. It's like, so they're trying to take these tools away from people, and the end result is prolonged poverty.
Yeah. So if anyone is in this circumstance that they're having this problem with having their children's income taken away from them on disability benefits, please call Shane Simpson and tell him that he needs to stop doing that to people.
All right. What about the education minister? Do you want to contact him for all the education stuff?
You mean what's his name? Rob Fleming?
Yeah.
You mean Melanie Mark? Melanie Mark would actually be should actually be involved in it as well. I agree. Melanie Mark hasn't. She increased the amount of grants to people with disabilities in post-secondary education recently, but she's yet to actually address the fact that ableism happens in academia really seriously, and neither is Rob Fleming. In elementary and high school. I mean, the stats for the amount of marginal of shunning and bullying that happen in schools towards people with disabilities is consistent across Canada. Year after year after year. It doesn't change. And the reason it doesn't change is because nobody's doing anything to change it.
No, nobody's saying about those kind of things right now. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the sad part.
Yeah, I mean, it's disturbing. I mean, even actually, apparently nowadays, it's you get bullied pretty seriously if you're gay or lesbian in school, but they won't allow anybody to bully if you say you're trans, which is fine. But the problem is that there's also an epidemic of young girls identifying as trans because their peers identify as trans.
Right.
Which is a major problem because they're not trans. They're just identifying that way because they're identifying with their peers. It's an epidemic. It's an epidemic, and the problem is that the trans community is opposed to anybody talking about it.
Michael,
I mean,
go on, Paul.
But anyway, so no, I mean there's problems in schools that they seriously need to deal with. The lack of support for disabled children and although a lot of the things the government seems to do are based on on fads. It seems like it's faddish to teach people about gender identity in grade 1 and sexual diversity in grade 1, but they're still not addressing the fact that disabled people are marginalized. Right,
Michael.
I don't think that there should be discrimination against the LGBT community at all, or any other group. But we keep on getting forgotten.
Michael.
That's the whole point. Nobody should be forgotten, and no one should be bullied, right?
Yeah.
We should have the right to be who we are.
Yeah,
I agree. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the other issue that I wanted to bring up today was something that I'm about to pursue with whole hog as much as I can.
Yep.
Is the fact that Telefilm Canada, which is the organization that the government has receiving funds for increasing diversity in the film sector in the film sector.
Oh, the telefilm industry. Okay, yeah.
Yes. Well, their diversity programs that they have entirely exclude the disabled.
Why is that?
What?
Why is that?
Well, because the organization they consulted with about diversity also entirely excludes the disabled. I actually encountered this organization on LinkedIn years ago, and they were actually excluding any posts from about the disabled as being part of diversity. They actually kicked a friend of mine out of their group for talking about disability as part of diversity.
Okay.
And so here we have Telefilm Canada is funding the production of films by minority group members, and particularly Indigenous or racial minority groups, but nothing for the disabled. And they also have people who are part of equity teams that actually just sort of determine who gets funding, and
yes.
the disabled aren't part of that either. So there's nothing on there. There's no way actually to ask for funding if you're as a disabled filmmaker.
Yeah. Now, why isn't National Film Board involved in Telefilm Canada? I mean, everything has to deal with the national arts and culture society situation. Why isn't all that happening?
I can tell what they decided to do when they actually Telefilm Canada was actually the designated place to put all this money so it could be dispersed to increase diversity in the film sector.
Right.
That's basically what the government decided. It's disturbing though, because it doesn't. I mean, but Mark Wafer he's a disability advocate that's quite conservative. He toured across Canada and talked to diversity officers in major corporations all over Canada, and none of them, absolutely none of them, would include diversity programs for the disabled.
But from what I'm hearing, that I'm hearing from 3 different institutional companies. They're anything that deals with involvement with Canadian culture and stuff. We have the CRTC dealing with anything that deals with broadcasting and everything dealing with this sort of broadcasting, either by podcasts, by private TV corporations, or by private and public radio corporations. We have you mentioned Telefilm Canada, where they're actually supposed to be doing some sort of what you mentioned, arts and cultural events that's happening in Canada. And you also have the National Film Board, where they do a lot of independent filming anywhere in Canada only. Yeah. And I'm like, don't these guys talk a lot about these kind of things?
But the problem is that they're usually, any time you have programs for diversity, where there's funding for various groups that are considered diverse, there's no money for the disabled. They just pretend that we don't exist. Mark, Minister, what's his name? Stephen Gilbolt.
Yeah.
He's the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Yes.
I sent him a letter the other day asking him about this and asking what he can do to actually stop the discrimination against the disabled in places like Telefilm Canada and other places. Because he's supposed to be responsible for... He says he's a pragmatist who works to make a difference by building bridges and relationships. But...
What?
Yes, that's what he says he is. But I mean, doesn't he? Can't he build a bridge to have a relationship with disabled people?
What? Oh my God!
Okay.
Oh my God!
Part of the issue with this is because I've applied for a grant for new Telefilm to have. It was a really good story about the prison break and the mindset that actually helped people through this time of a riot get through the danger and actually survive and be able to live with what happened to them later on, right?
Right.
Because there wasn't some corporate backing, or it wasn't the right corporate message to what was what it was. Even though it was an independent film, So that means that there usually isn't going to be any kind of corporation behind it. But they were looking for a specific message, and it didn't meet the criteria, and it didn't get any funding from Telefilm or anything else. And the basic reason is because they didn't like what it represented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, by the way by saying that you want people with disabilities to be able to get more funding towards their film, if it doesn't show something like what's his name, Rick Hansen, or
some other disability porn issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name? Terry Fox. Right?
Yes.
Right.
If it's not something like that, they don't want any parts of it.
Well, that's what I'm wondering about. I mean, the funding that they have for Indigenous people doesn't seem to be attached to corporations. It's specifically there's specific funds attached to these equity groups.
Right.
That is not the same as the funds that actually you have to have a corporate backer at the same time. You have to have it already agreed to go on air at the same time. It seems to be independent films produced by these groups, by equity group members. So I think it's a bit different from what they're, because I know what you mean. Their standard fare from Telefilm Canada, you have to have it backed. You have to have somebody willing to broadcast it in advance. But the equity funds seem to just be for producing films. So you don't actually have to have a backer for them,
Right.
To actually do it. But they're denying that to disabled people. I'm planning on being in touch with the Canadian Heritage critic for the NDP, Alexandra Rice.
Right.
Hopefully they'll have something to say. But it's interesting. The NDP has a person that's responsible for diversity and inclusion. Well, I wonder if they realize that people with disabilities are part of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have they been advocating for the disabled? Probably not.
I don't know. Yeah.
I'm going to be in touch with them asking. Their name is Lindsay Matheson. And that's normally the case, that whenever there's a diversity program, the disabled aren't included in it.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we're 22% of the Canadian population and the largest right-seeking group on the planet.
Right.
Yes.
But I mean, it's not like we're going to see another disability person like Terry Fox or Rick Hansen doing another marathon across Canada saying, look, I'm doing this for the disability and the COVID-19 situation. Just like that, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's frustrating because, we still have Rick Hansen making public appearances everywhere he goes, but he doesn't actually represent, he's constantly talking about physical access, not cultural or social access.
Okay.
And I don't know. I don't know Rick Hansen.
No.
But I know that he's not an advocate.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's why he keeps on getting funding, because he's not an advocate.
Yeah. But I mean, we just seem to be like we're running out of disability heroes and making a difference, that kind of thing.
Yes, we need more disability porn.
That's for sure.
You know, actually, I was curious about that. There is a segment out there of people people in the porn industry that are disabled. There was a story about them a couple of years ago. I was surprised. I was wondering if there actually was disability porn, and yes, there is.
There is, yeah. Not surprised. Yes.
Yeah. There is an area of our society that truly is diverse. You have the if you can think of the theme, there's probably a porn for it.
That's true, Michael. Holy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. I imagine there's some people that get turned on by sneezing. Well, that's what snuff was all about, isn't it?
Oh yeah, well, don't get involved with the kids involved in that.
Neurologically, sneezing and an orgasm are supposed to be identical.
Yeah. It's probably
that's why snuff is so popular.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know fall's around the corner. I'm just thinking ahead about what our Canadian politicians are doing. I know we just elected a new conservative. Oh, Jimmy. No, I'm going to say Jimmy O'Toole, but I'm not. It's not Jimmy O'Toole. I know it's O'Toole, Mr. O'Toole. I just want your takes on the new conservative leader.
I really don't know for sure. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about any of them. Given that there's probably going to be an election almost immediately. They're just going to be rallying against the support that the Liberals have been showing Canadians during the COVID crisis.
Right.
It's their stance on it. They've made a determined effort to side farther to the right, determinedly to the right, rather than they're very different. I mean, this is their third leader now.
Almost the third leader. Yeah, I think almost the third leader. We had Stephen Harper as Prime Minister, and then we had
Rona Ambrose for a little bit.
Yeah, and then Andrew Scheer as.
So I guess fourth leader.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. What's that noise?
That's my phone. Somebody keeps on sending me messages on my phone.
Oh, do you have your phone on silent?
It's not supposed to be on at all. I put it in my desk drawer and close it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my concern. I mean, apparently Justin Trudeau is planning something significant as far as a redrafting of social programs, which would be a major plus. I just hope he manages to get something through before there's an election. But even if they're going back in September, a non-confidence vote won't bring us an election until spring.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what about, I know we're about a couple of weeks away from kids going back to school. What are your takes on that?
I'm scared of it myself.
Yeah.
Because the reason they keep on citing the fact that children haven't been catching COVID. Well, children aren't exposed to strangers.
Right.
I mean, who lets their children interact with strangers freely? They're pretty secluded to begin with. So that's one of the main reasons why they haven't been getting COVID, as far as I can tell. But they're going to be exposed to a lot of people in school. Mm-hmm. I'm quite concerned about it because I mean it could kill them, and also the costs physically if they get it are heart problems, organ damage,
yes,
neurological damage. It's pretty severe.
What about the kids of special needs on the schools?
Yeah, that's a big problem. It's a huge problem.
Well, that's one of the items that the BCTF is also concerned about.
Because they do need one-to-one support more than others. Definitely, they need to be in. I mean, it's like the same problem people with disabilities everywhere in the community. If you have support people helping you, you're at risk.
Right. Well, see, I'm gonna take this in another direction though.
Okay.
I'm gonna lead back to the impoverished groups again, right?
Okay.
I am able to work at home, and I have a number of friends who are able to work at home. They are not sending their kids back to school.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. They are going to homeschool their kids.
Right. Which we've heard a lot about it on the news.
Which is a good thing because it actually takes pressure off of the school system with the social distancing and trying to figure out how many windows to open, which is another problem. The more modern schools do not have the ability to open their windows.
Okay.
Wow.
they're using air handlers. Air handlers are, as Paul a couple episodes ago, you brought this up about how stores should be opening up their doors instead of using air handlers because the air handlers help spread the disease around.
Right.
Keep blowing it around because it's recycled air.
Right.
So, on top of which, yes, there is a UN directive to get as many schools open as possible, but globally, schools mean different things depending on where you are in the world. In some areas, it means that it is a meal for a child. It means that it is immunization and medical care for a child when you have a school open.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the case here in Canada.
Yeah.
In which case, here in Canada, it is a repository for children so that the parents can go to work.
Right.
Yes.
If you don't have a need for that repository because you are working at home, don't use it.
Yeah.
Be responsible for your children.
Right.
I agree. I think that's good. That's a very wise move, Michael.
It is.
The thing that gets me about this thing about air handlers, recycling air. You know, I don't know why there's not companies out there retrofitting them with ultraviolet light somehow to capture it, because certain frequencies of ultraviolet light, not the frequency that you get outside on the ground, but farther up in the atmosphere, actually kill COVID-19. They kill all viruses. They're actually quite. They're quite. But you could retrofit things like air conditioning systems, plane systems that recirculate air, buildings, so that somehow the air is trapped and cleaned before it's recirculated. Do you think that it should be possible to do that?
It is entirely possible to do that, and most of those people because I worked under those conditions when I worked in the chemical industry, but I was in a class 10,000 clean room. So there's only a handful of people in the world that actually can do that work, and they're working for high-tech companies and for space agencies and things like that.
I was going to come on to...
They're not even... So schools are completely off of their radar as a business.
I was going to come on to vaccines right now, but you already jumped the gun on it. So on vaccines, I know some of the companies like Australia at the end of the year, they're saying they're going to get it from the Oxford University down there, and having the COVID-19 as safe as possible throughout the Australian country. Now, I know Donald Trump has some sort of idiotic situations about it. We have other companies. What was the comment they were talking about the other day? Oh, what was it? It'll come to my head for some reason, and it was a word that I did heard it on the national on CBC News, but I forgot all about it. Oh, Dolly. Silly me. Like I said, it'll come to me. I know, and then again, it has something to do with vaccines from all over the world, and I know Canada is probably gotten invented by another personnel, that sort of thing. I was just throwing that on the table. I mean, do you have any comments on that?
Well, I'm glad that they're getting closer and closer to being able to test and use the vaccine. I find it a little disappointing that there's not more that the collaboration that was happening about developing the vaccine isn't happening as much. I mean, there's this claims that people are spying and stealing other people's research, and I mean, why do you need to steal research that's vital to the population of the world?
Right.
Yeah, greed.
Greed. That's more likely.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Okay, so according to the WHO,
yes,
there is they have developed a program called COVAX, and it's a global vaccine facility.
Okay.
Yeah, it's COVAX. And it's really designed for second and third world countries that don't have the economies that we have here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But right now they have 172 countries that are enrolled in this program.
Right.
In which case, the program itself is designed so that it will capture so many billions of doses of the vaccine when it is actually developed. But here's one of the big problems: is you have like Russia. They are rushing to develop the vaccine so they can be first on the market and the first to sell it.
Yep.
That they are trying to bypass certain stages of testing and development in order to do so.
Mm.
But if we miss a step in a stage in development and testing, that do either one of you remember when Donald Trump was talking about, why don't we just shoot up some bleach into our veins and
Oh yeah,
the virus, right?
Yeah.
Well, a vaccine that hasn't been tested properly is even more dangerous than shooting bleach into your veins.
That
it could actually give you COVID.
Yeah,
Well,
and it will also have side effects as well.
Your entire immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it will also have side effects as well. So don't try it, people.
Yeah. So they're trying to make sure that that and this is one of the reasons why, of course, the U.S., China, and Russia were they're trying to steal our technology. They're trying to steal this from us so that they can be first to hit the market with it. Because I just told you that there is a market out there. 172 countries are looking to buy over 1 billion doses.
Wow.
Yes.
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, you stick a dollar amount to 1 billion doses and tell me what you come up with, right?
Mm. Exactly.
So there's a lot of greed involved in this. That some pharmaceutical corporation wants that purse, and they're willing to take that purse regardless of how many people they actually hurt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the problem.
So it's going to take it's going to take a while to develop the vaccine to do so safely.
Right. Without any side effects.
Dr. Tam was criticized because we were one of the last countries to put in the bid for our doses.
Right.
And the reason is because she's thinking about safety.
Yes.
She wants to make sure that these candidates, vaccine candidates, that they actually make it into stage 3 testing before looking at it. And she wants to see how they fare out through stage 3 testing.
Yes, it's absolutely pointless to develop vaccines that don't work.
Yes.
Right.
There always be negative activities on medicine sooner or later. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the apparently the Australian National University they figure that by $35.3 trillion in health costs are going to come from COVID, from the after effects of COVID, because of all the damage to people's bodies. $35.3 trillion through 2025.
Yeah, I just received an update on the coronavirus. Spoiler alert: we just reached about a high of 322 cases now. I can't believe it. I just got it on my phone now.
Well, the really disturbing thing is when you look at world population, that the Americas have about a third of the world's population, but we represent, for 2 continents, we represent almost 60% of the cases.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to
60% of the
Donald Trump and Bolsonaro in Brazil.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
You know,
I mean, apparently the virus in India has mutated so much that a vaccine would suit us in North America wouldn't suit them in India.
Yeah, they came in third in the COVID list next to Brazil and the United States. Yeah, that's also scary too.
Because I mean, one of the things that I keep on thinking about is vaccines are life. Life wants to breathe, and it'll mutate. I suspect probably COVID will probably become more contagious as time passes because a lot of things, because of what they're doing in the U.S. With just allowing it to run rampant.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'm going to kind of paraphrase Dr. Mike Ryan from the WHO, and he said that the virus is looking for a human host. It's looking for a human host. So by social distancing and the measures that we're taking, wearing the mask and washing our hands and all these things, all these measures that wiping down your surfaces properly, every measure, if we do it all, if every person was to do it all,
right,
and that's the whole point. We have to do it all. We can't skip something.
Right.
We have to do it all. That if every person was to do it, that it would put enough pressure on the virus and keep the pressure on it until it starts to subside.
Yeah.
Just with those measures, that it would start to subside until they actually were able to come up with a true vaccine safely. You know.
Well, yeah. What I found really scary was that, in Sweden, they're actually talking about the fact that just having the school children back at school, infecting one another, will help them reach herd immunity. I mean,
I did not know that.
I was just amazed at the inhumanity of these people. I mean, this is a social democratic government in Sweden. I mean, I would never. It's just so hard for me to believe that people could actually think that it's fine to allow children to get ill,
right?
Just so that somehow you'll reach herd immunity someday.
Wow.
Well, yeah, but Paul, when you got chicken pox, what did your mother do? Did she invite all the other kids in the neighborhood?
Yeah, let's go party.
Let's make sure everybody gets it so that nobody can get it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I'm not trying to pick on your mom, Paul.
No.
I'm not doing that. I would do that. I'm sure your mom.
I had an employee once that got chicken pox, and we didn't have a health plan, so I just sent them home and paid them until they got better.
Nice.
Boy, it ticked off people at work. You're paying them while they're at home while we don't have a health plan.
No.
Well, I see some brains in that plan. What leads me to the other point is like, seriously, if we're sick, stay home.
Yes.
Not go to work.
Yes.
It's like, how many people, while we're on this about advocacy for people with disabilities and trying to keep people well, while we're on this, right? How many people out there that could be listening to us right now come in contact with somebody with a disability, and then their immune system in a lot of cases is already going to be vulnerable. It doesn't matter if it's because the person's in a wheelchair or blindness, whatever it is. It could be myoencephalitis that causes chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yes.
It's like, we're talking about a group of people that have a potential to have an immune deficiency.
Right.
So if you go and you go to work because you work with these people and you're sick, you're going to get somebody sick.
Yeah.
And do you want that pressure put on your soul, on your heart? Do you want that? You know, if you're sick, stay home.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, rest and get better. And to our government, it's like, what are you waiting for? You have employment insurance. Why can't we issue a sick time insurance plan that does the same exact job?
True.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to say, do you have any final thoughts for this podcast of the month of August? Do you have any final thoughts?
Go ahead, Paul.
Not really.
Not really? Okay. I'll just say enjoy your summer, Paul.
I think my final thought, my thought for the month is let's get disabled people included in diversity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael?
I think I already grandstanded on the sick time thing.
All right. Well, it's good to know you guys.
What about you, Kelly?
Thank you, guys. I loved it. I enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get this on podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, you guys.
Thank you. All right.
Take care now.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Our panels, myself, Paul, and Michael, on the month of August of the Community Living Show. Thank you very much for tuning in, and you can always check them out on Facebook. I know Paul Gilbert has his BC Disability Caucus. You can contact him as well. And again, thank you for tuning in for the month of August. Of course, this is recording of August 25th. The Community Living Podcast is from the Depictions Media Radio by Michael Clogs, with co-hosts Kelly Rayburn from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Michael Clogs from White Rock, British Columbia, Canada, and Paul Gilbert from Esquimalt, British Columbia, Canada. The show is recorded by Kelly Rayburn from Vancouver, and it is edited by Michael Clogs from White Rock. The theme for this show is by Enigma. My name is Kelly Rayburn, aka DJ Ray. I do co-op radio and on Mixcloud. Email me anytime. Send to DJ Ray. That's all in one word, lowercase, SENDTODJREA @gmail.com. If you like what you hear on this program, please support and like Depictions Radio. Till next time, stay safe, and from Dr. Bonnie Henry's words, be kind, be calm, and be safe. Take care.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.